Linnea is a software engineer at Microsoft by day, but she's a data sleuth at 350 Seattle by night. Let's hear what she's uncovered about who owns downtown Seattle as part of the Electrify Seattle campaign. Linnea, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Quick shout out to Bill, who founded 350, and Drew, who founded the SEC, both of which I like to say I'm a member of. So, who owns downtown Seattle? This is the question I and my fellow researchers at 350 were trying to answer as part of our Electrify Seattle campaign. And along the way, we learned a lot about how tech can help to empower a grassroots movement. Why do we care? Well, Seattle's Office for Sustainability and Environment published that up to 37% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings. So at the start of the year, the OSE published the Building Electrification Performance Standards, or BEPS. And this mandates that all buildings over 20,000 square feet electrify by 2050. So Electrify Seattle is trying to push up this deadline, as well as implement a few stronger constraints. Not too surprisingly, big business interests are not a fan of this legislation. A lot of the opposition we've heard comes from downtown, where they say that most of these buildings are owned by mom and pop companies that just can't afford to electrify. Side note, we're going to focus on buildings over 100,000 square feet because they tend to be the most carbon inefficient, as well as the most expensive to electrify. So quick sneak peek at the results. They're wrong. Only 3% of these biggest buildings are owned by individuals or families. So let's see how we got these results. Well, that was really hard to do because big corporations like to hide the extent of their property portfolio behind shell LLCs. So for each building that they own, they'll set up a different shell LLC, so that it becomes a lot harder to trace the genealogy, if you will. Well, let's try and walk through an example. This is a map of downtown Seattle where all of the buildings are color-coded by their carbon efficiency. So this particular example is the Renaissance Madison Hotel. The site energy use intensity is okay at 67, but it could be better. To figure out who owns this parcel of land, we can look up the address in the Department of Revenue for Washington State, and we find the shell company name called Madison Hotel LLC. Before we can make an educated guess at who owns the shell company, we're going to go to one last database called the Corporations and Charities Filing System. And the important data point here are the governors of a company, which are usually the officials that report to the company. And in this case, we see that this entity is listed on the governors called R.C. Hadreen Co. And if we do a quick Google search, we find the real owners of downtown Seattle, aka R.C. Hadreen Co., which is a real estate company that owns a lot of luxury hotels in downtown Seattle. The namesake R.C. Hadreen has been historically very anti-hotel workers unionizing, and even has some downtown slang named after him called the Hadreen loophole for his history avoiding paying city property taxes. So we can repeat this process for all, we can repeat this process for all the buildings in downtown, and we start to find some real climate villains. Some highlights include condo owners, hotel chains, even Amazon makes a guest appearance. Along with this, we did an estimate of the assets controlled by each of these companies. And as you can see, they tend to order on the range of billions of dollars. So we posit that if you have billions of dollars in assets, you can probably afford to electrify your building, making the original claim go up in smoke. So it's really important to note, it took me 20 minutes to retrace this process by hand for the sake of this talk, and we had to go through hundreds of buildings. So tech was really important in automating, just connecting these 3 disparate databases, and that's on top of the work that we had to do to then go and estimate the assets. All of these findings are written up in our report, Who Owns Downtown Seattle?, which has been really helpful in helping us to understand the power dynamics in downtown as we seek to electrify. But it's also helped us to reshape the narrative because the mayor has decided to delay sending this legislation to council until after the budget season, which we're in now. And this causes problems because that's where we as citizens would have had a chance to modify the legislation through public comment and constituent lobbying. So what can we do about it? Well, everyone here can go to this link and call or email the mayor to let him know that you want him to stop delaying vital climate legislation. And if you happen to represent a community group in Seattle, hit me up afterwards and we can get you signed up on the community support letter. That's all I've got. Thank you, everyone. Here's some socials as well as the GitHub repo with all the research. And lastly, thank you so much to the rest of the Electrify Seattle research team, without whom I would not be able to be here speaking with you all.
Wow.